Tonight, when you fall asleep, something genuinely insane is going to happen to you, and you'll have no memory of agreeing to it. Your body will become paralyzed. Your eyes will start darting back and forth behind closed lids as if you're watching something. And your brain, the same brain that can't remember where you left your keys, will generate an entire world. People who don't exist, places you've never been, a storyline you fully believe, with total conviction, right up until the moment you wake up and it dissolves. You will do this for roughly 2 hours, every single night. And by morning, almost all of it will be gone. We call this normal. We've done it our whole lives. And here is the part nobody tells you. After more than a century of serious science, with brain scanners and sleep labs and thousands of studies, we still do not fully know why it happens. Dreaming is one of the last great unsolved mysteries of the human mind, hiding in plain sight, happening to you tonight. So let's actually ask the question. Not, what does my dream mean? A bigger one. Why does the brain do this at all? Why, after a long day, does it refuse to simply shut off and rest, and instead build an elaborate hallucination and force you to live inside it? Let's start with how strange the scale of this is. If you live to 80, you will spend about 25 years of your life asleep. And of those years, you will spend roughly 6 of them dreaming. 6 years, a childhood's worth of time, lived entirely inside your own skull, in worlds that leave no trace. And here's the first uncomfortable fact. Everyone does this. Even the people who swear they never dream. Sleep studies have shown again and again that people who insist they don't dream, when woken up at the right moment, will describe a vivid dream they were having seconds earlier. They dream just as much as everyone else. They just forget faster. So this isn't happening to some people. It's happening to all of us, every night, whether we remember it or not. But for almost all of human history, we had no way to even look at it. Sleep was a black box. You went in, you came out, and whatever happened in between was untouchable. That changed because of an accident, and a tired graduate student watching his own son. In 1953, at the University of Chicago, a researcher named Eugene Aserinsky was studying sleep using a machine that recorded eye movement and brain activity. The work was tedious and his funding was thin. One night, partly to save resources, he wired up his own 8-year-old son and watched the readings. And in the middle of the night, the machine went wild. The pen's recording eye movement started scribbling furiously, as if the sleeping boy's eyes were sprinting back and forth. Aserinsky assumed the machine was broken. It wasn't. He and his supervisor, Nathaniel Kleitman, had just discovered REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. They found that several times a night, your brain enters a state where your eyes move rapidly, your body goes still, and when they started waking people up during these phases, they were almost always in the middle of a vivid dream. For the first time, dreaming had a fingerprint, something you could measure on a screen. And what they found over the following decades broke the most basic assumption about sleep. We think of sleep as the brain powering down. It isn't. During REM, parts of your brain are as active as they are when you're wide awake. Some regions are even more active. Your brain is not resting during a dream. It is working extremely hard to build something. But working on what? And why? Here is where it gets genuinely bizarre and where the mystery sharpens. Brain scans show that during a dream, 2 things happen at once. The emotional center of your brain, the amygdala, the part that handles fear and intensity, lights up and runs hot. But the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, self-awareness, and asking, wait, does this make sense? Goes quiet, powers down. Sit with what that means. In a dream, the part of your brain that feels is fully online. The part that questions is switched off. That is the whole secret of why dreams feel the way they do. It's why you can be talking to a dead relative in a house that's also somehow your school, riding an animal that's also a bus, and not for 1 second think anything is wrong. The critic in your head isn't asleep. It's been deliberately turned off. You are running pure feeling with no editor. So why would evolution build a brain that does this on purpose? People have been trying to answer that for a very long time, and the answers tell you as much about us as about dreams. The first serious modern attempt came in 1900 when Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams. His answer was that dreams are disguised wishes, secret desires your waking mind won't allow, sneaking out at night in symbolic costume. For most of the 20th century, This was the dominant idea. It's also where we get the entire pop culture habit of decoding dreams. The problem is, almost none of it held up to scientific testing. Freud's specific theory is largely abandoned now. But he got one thing profoundly right, and it's worth crediting him for it. He was the first to insist, seriously, that dreams were not random noise from the gods. They came from inside you, and they meant something about you. That reframe never went away. Then, in 1977, two Harvard psychiatrists, Alan Hobson and Robert McCarley, swung hard in the opposite direction. Their idea, called the activation synthesis hypothesis, was almost brutally deflating. They proposed that during REM, your brainstem fires off essentially random electrical signals, and your higher brain, which cannot stand chaos, desperately tries to stitch those random signals into a story. The dream isn't a hidden message. It's your brain doing improv, scrambling to narrate noise. The weirdness isn't symbolic. It's just what a story looks like when it's built out of static. That sounds like the end of the magic. But notice something. Even in this cold version, the headline is astonishing. Your brain would rather invent a bizarre, impossible narrative than tolerate meaninglessness for even a few seconds. The need to make a story is so deep that it runs all night, automatically, whether or not you're there to watch. Other scientists pushed back, because activation synthesis didn't explain one obvious thing. Why are dreams so often frightening? A Finnish researcher named Antti Rauvansuo offered a darker, more practical answer: the threat simulation theory. He pointed out that a huge proportion of dreams involve danger. Being chased, falling, being attacked, losing someone. His argument: the dream is a training ground, a flight simulator for survival. Your ancestors who rehearsed fleeing the predator in their sleep, over and over, in total safety, woke up a little better prepared to flee the real one. Dreams, in this view, aren't entertainment. They're rehearsal for the worst night of your life. Run quietly every night so you never have to face it cold. And this connects to something old and strange. The word nightmare has nothing to do with horses. The mare comes from an ancient word, mare, for a malevolent spirit, a demon believed to sit on the chest of a sleeping person and crush the breath out of them. Across cultures and centuries, people described the same terrifying experience: waking in the dark, unable to move, certain that something was in the room, pressing down on them. We now know what that is. It's sleep paralysis. The moment when your mind wakes up, but the dream paralysis hasn't switched off yet. So you're conscious, frozen, and your dreaming brain is still painting a figure into the dark. For thousands of years, every culture that had no science to explain it reached for the same answer: a demon. Your ancestors weren't imagining it. They were experiencing a real neurological event and giving it the only name they had. But here's the discovery that should genuinely rearrange your sense of what's possible. For most of history, we assumed a dream was a closed room. You're in it, alone, unreachable. Then, in the 1980s at Stanford, a researcher named Stephen LaBerge studied lucid dreaming, the state where you become aware, inside the dream, that you are dreaming. The skeptics said it wasn't real, that people were just half awake. So LaBerge designed something clever. He trained lucid dreamers, before sleep, to make a specific pattern of eye movements the moment they realized they were dreaming, because the eyes still moved during REM. And in the lab, it worked. Wired to the machines, deep in REM sleep, fully dreaming, his subjects sent the agreed-upon signal, deliberate, prearranged eye movements, out from inside the dream. Think about what that actually is. A message sent in real time, from a person who is unconscious and dreaming to the waking world. We made contact with someone inside a dream. The closed room had a door after all, and it isn't only us. In the late 1990s and 2000s, a neuroscientist named Matthew Wilson at MIT recorded the brains of rats as they ran through mazes during the day. Then he recorded those same brains while the rats slept. And he found the exact same patterns of neural firing replaying in sleep. The rats were running the maze again, in their dreams, step for step. So this thing you do every night, this building of secret worlds, is not uniquely human. It's old, far older than us. Whatever dreaming is for, it mattered enough that evolution kept it running across millions of years and countless species. Which brings us to the newest idea, and the one that might reframe this whole thing. In 2021, A neuroscientist named Eric Hull proposed what he called the overfitted brain hypothesis. He borrowed it from artificial intelligence. When you train an AI on the same data too many times, it overfits. It gets so locked into what it's already seen that it becomes rigid and fails the moment it meets anything new. The fix engineers use is to feed the system noisy, distorted, weird versions of the data to force it to stay flexible. Hull's idea is that this is exactly what dreams are for. Each day, your brain learns your routine, your patterns, your same walls. And if that's all it ever saw, you'd get rigid too. So every night, your brain generates strange, warped, impossible versions of your life. And that very weirdness is the point. The bizarreness of dreams isn't a flaw in the system. It might be the feature that keeps your mind from becoming a machine that can only handle yesterday. And that flips everything. We tend to treat the strangeness of dreams as the embarrassing part, the nonsense, the gibberish, the stuff not worth analyzing. But what if the nonsense is the whole reason we dream? What if the impossible house and the talking animal and the storyline that makes no sense are not the brain failing to make sense, but the brain deliberately refusing to, on purpose, so that you wake up a little more flexible, a little more ready for a world that never quite matches the plan? We still don't have the final answer. After Aserinsky's wandering pens, after Freud and Hobson and Revanchuo and LaBerge and Hull, the honest scientific position is that we have several powerful, partial answers and no complete one. Dreaming remains genuinely unsolved, which means that thing you do every night. The most universal human experience there is, more universal than language, more universal than love, is something we cannot fully explain. So here is what I want to leave you with. Tonight, you will lie down, and you will lose your body and your name and your sense of what's possible. You will become someone who believes, with total sincerity, in a world that isn't there. You'll feel real fear and real joy over things that never happened. And then you'll wake up, and it will slip through your fingers before your feet hit the floor, and you'll brush your teeth as if nothing extraordinary occurred at all. Every night of your life, you have been an explorer of a place no one else can ever visit. You've been doing it since before you could speak. And the strangest part isn't that it happens. The strangest part is that it happens to all of us, every night, and we still don't really know why.